to create a logo. In a later tutorial, actually one that I already have posted under the Photoshop tutorials, you'll see how you can make your logo transparent, which I'll kind of touch on a little bit, but I'll make sure that I link that tutorial on the post here as well. So basically, to get started, you're going to go to Create New in Photoshop. Maybe if it'll open here. You want to make sure your resolution is always 300 ppi there, the pixels per inch. That's going to give you the best print resolution. Now, if you're making this logo to be printed on something, a banner, if it's going to be a logo to go in something that, basically anything that's going to be printed. So if it's a book, a magazine, any kind of publication, or advertising material, you want to make sure that the color mode is set to the CMYK mode. That's going to give you the best print quality. If you're mainly going to be using it for social media, your website, and so on, you can hit the RGB. If you are making a black and white logo, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to go with the RGB, 300 resolution. To start, I'm just going to do something basic here. We'll just go 12 by 12 and create. So that'll just give me a square to start with. You want to make sure that it's not too small, because if you do ever end up printing it and you have a really small logo, then you run into the issues of it being pixelated and grainy because you're trying to enlarge a file that's really small, and the printer is just not going to be able to handle that well. So now that I have this, what I'm doing is I'm actually making a logo for my sister. She has a food delivery service that she's recently started, so we are working with that name, which is Family Fresh Food. I'm going to come up with a couple different options for her, and so from there, once I make the logo and she chooses it, then from that chosen one, I'll take you to the next tutorial, which is what I do when I'm giving a logo to a client so that it is print ready and web ready and so on. So I kind of give them a couple different file versions. So if it's a black and white logo, I generally will give them one where the font is black and the background is transparent, and then I'll give them one where it's white with transparent, and a couple different file types. So we'll get into that in the next tutorial. But for now, let's just start with the logo. So I'm going to do a couple here. I'm going to do one with a couple clip art images that I found that were from a site that I pay to get, which is Dreams Time. I pay a monthly fee so that I can download a certain amount of images. I use that a lot for our character sessions when I do the composites of those. So just be careful, because you can get into trouble just stealing images. So I'm going to go to where I just have these basic ones saved here. I have already, like I said, made the logo transparent. So, and I just went to, let me backtrack here. So place embedded and place linked. The difference between those two is if you hit place linked, then that file is always going to be linked to where that picture is. So if you open up this image at a later point and the device that that original image was saved on is not anywhere to be found, it won't open up correctly. So I always do place embedded. So again, I do that. I'm going to go to find my pictures here, and so let's start with this. So there are a lot of different tools I'm going to use here, like using the transform tool. Like I said, I already made the logo transparent and a few other things, but I'm going to skip over those. If you want to look into more specifics of how to do that type of stuff, just please make sure you check out our other tutorials where I show you those basic Photoshop skills. So let me resize this a little bit here. And usually when I create a logo, I don't always know where I'm starting. I just kind of start with something and go from there. So I kind of had this idea of having some kind of central image and then family above it and then fresh food below it. So I'm going to try that, and it may look totally stupid, and like I said, I'll do another one. Because all three words start with an F, I'm also going to do kind of a play on that in a second one as well. So from here, I'm going to pull up the type key there. And you can certainly do this in Illustrator as well. Because I'm a photographer by heart and I use Photoshop so much, and I've taught that to students and so on, I know it like the back of my hand, whereas I'm not as comfortable with Illustrator, so that is why I choose to use Photoshop instead. So to start right now, my font is set to this blue, which I don't like, so let me get black. This font, Aliens and Cows, was the default one, must have been what I used for the last whatever graphic design piece that I made. But that was downloaded from dafont.com. I'll actually include a link to that as well. That's where I download a lot of my fonts, which are free. It's a great tool for graphic designers. So let me enlarge the font a little bit here. It's probably too big. And if you pull up the character key here, I felt like I thought maybe it was on bold. It kind of looked a little bold. On the characters here, you can see the spacing, which is how far apart each line is or how spaced out the characters are. So if you want, that is 0. If you want them to be spaced out more, I could space them out even more, which I like that look a lot, so I will do that several times just for different things, like if I'm making posters for my class or whatever. I just like the way the letters look when they're a little more spaced. So for now, let me try that, and you can see the guidelines, the snap lines there. The pink, when I move this around, it's showing me that it's centered, and if I move it down more, there we go, that little pink line showing up in the middle is showing me that's the center point there. Okay, so that's centered. So we have family, and I really want like the F and the Y to be lined up with the outer edge of this. So if I want to get that perfect, what I can do is go to View, Show, Grid, and now I can make sure that it's going to line up with the edge right here. So I'm going to make this text just a little bit bigger. 200 I started with might have been the best anyway. And let me just pull it down to see how it lines up there. Looks like I need just a little bigger than that. Okay, that's centered. So I'm going to go just slightly bigger. 210. I don't know what just happened there. I hit some weird button. I think it thought I was typing numbers. Okay, the family is very close. Let's bring that in just a tiny bit this way. So let's go to like 45 and bring that in. Okay, I think we're good there. So, and then from here we're going to do the words fresh food. fresh. Food. Okay, family fresh food. Let's make this font smaller. 72 is going to be too small here. Let's go to 100 for all of it. Too small. Let's try 120. Pretty close. Let's try 110. So you can see it's a little back and forth kind of until you get the perfect size. That one is pretty close, so I'm going to add just a few more. Still trying to get it lined up with this line here. I think we need 115. Okay, so let's move that down. Family fresh food. So you can see the outer edge of the D and the F is lined up with this F and this Y here. So let me, from here, and I want to make sure that I have the same distance between the bottom of this image on the inside of the bottom of the circle and the top of the letters, and the same spacing here. And I don't have that same spacing, so let me move this up a little bit. So to get a better view of this, let's go to View, Show, Grid to remove that grid. And this is what we're left with. So I'm going to crop this in a little bit to give me kind of a better indication of what we got. Hit Enter and crop the bottom just a tad. Okay, so that is logo number 1, and I'm going to save it. Usually when I save it, I'll save the file like separate here. What I mean is I'm keeping the layers separate. So if I presented this to a client and they liked it, but they wanted something small changed, I don't have to completely remake the logo. If I didn't, if I had saved it as a JPEG, it's going to flatten this whole image where I can't make any adjustments. So I always save it as a Photoshop document. So I'm going to go to Save As. You can see by default it says PSD, which is a Photoshop document. We're going to say logo 1 and save that. I'm also going to save it as a JPEG because if my client doesn't have Photoshop, they are not going to be able to view that Photoshop document. So I usually send to them to proof the logo. I will send them a JPEG so they can see it. They'll be able to see that on their phone or their computer, whatever they're viewing it on. So Save As. So here's the JPEG. Select the first option there, logo 1, and hit Save. So for instance, if this was the one that they chose, I would go back and make it transparent so that when they place this onto anything, it's not going to have this white box around it. It's going to be just the little design, the graphic in the middle and the letters. Okay, so that's the first one. Let's do a second one here. So starting on the second one here, I just created the same size canvas to work with. I'm going to try the logo with a play on the letter F. So if I go to the Type tool and type, well, that's not what I wanted, and type an F here. And let's see what font I want to use. I want something that's a sans serif. So that, if you're unfamiliar with that, that is with the serif. So if it says serif, it looks like that. That means it has like the little hooks on the end of the letters. This is sans serif where it doesn't have that. So I'm just trying to find a nice, I want an F that's not really thin, not too fat either, kind of an in-between. Let's try, I just saw one. And I like, let me try this. Let's go a little bit bigger. Actually, just kidding. I know what font I want. Caviar Dreams, or, yeah, let's do the Caviar Dreams, I believe. Okay, so let's make this bigger. So I have the F, pretty good size here, and what I want to do is make kind of a mirror image, not a mirrored image, but like a shadow almost of it, to indicate the 3 F's of family fresh food. So let me move this down here, and then from there I'm going to make a bigger one. So let's do this. And this one has to be larger. So let's go, that's probably not going to be big enough. Trying to get bigger here. $800, not big enough. $850, closer. Let's try $900. That's probably good. So my thoughts are to delete out I'm thinking to myself. My thoughts are to delete out the line here of the F, and to delete this portion, so that basically I have what's left is like an upside down L. So that'll kind of indicate like an F, and then the white would stand for an F, and then the third actual F there. But I'm not sure that I like how this is a little bit thicker than this one, so let me hide that layer for a second. I'm going to duplicate this layer, which is the F, and instead I think I'm just going to try to transform it, which is where I'm going to stretch it. Well, that's going to give me the same result. Okay, so the other simpler probably option would be to just make 2 bars out of a rectangle here. So let's just go for that one there. Make sure it's the same width as this F, okay? And then we're going to create a Let me move that rectangle down just a little. Make sure it's level there. And I'm going to make one more rectangle. That again needs to be the same thickness. I'm getting really close here to just make sure that everything lines up, and if you can see, if you look really closely, this part here is slightly in, so I need to resize that just a little bit. There we go. And I'm seeing this lighter part here, and I just want to make sure that the color is correct. So the outer part should be aha, I knew that wasn't a true black color there, so let's fix this one as well. The stroke. So if you look at the vertical box or rectangle that I created, the outer part of it, what they call the stroke, if you can tell on your screen, is slightly lighter, and that's driving me crazy. It needs to be a solid black, so I'm just adjusting the color so you can see how that just switched there. So now that blends together. So when I zoom back out, this is what I am left with, which I actually really like that. And so from there, at the bottom, so like it could just be left like that, and then we can say at the bottom, family fresh food. It could be at the top. It could be really large to the side here. So I'm going to do two options. The first one is at the bottom, and then I'm going to do a bigger one where it says family fresh food to the left of the F, this kind of triple F here. So let me zoom out a little more. I'm going to merge these so that now I can move them where I want. If we were going to do family fresh food and just type it at the bottom, small. Right now that's not going to work because the font is humongous. Let's do family fresh food. And we're going to need a font that is really skinny. Something like that. Okay, obviously that's really simple, kind of hard to read. I actually see if there's a font that's even skinnier than that. So I would prefer it to be kind of skinnier and taller. Let's try this one. That one's definitely better. So let's see here. I need to make it slightly smaller so that it lines up with the edges of this larger F. So let's go 46 and try that. That looks to be just about right. So we've got this. Obviously with a logo like this, the emphasis is really on the graphic detail here and not so much the title. So this is something like, for instance, Target. Target is so well known for their graphic, which is the bullseye. They don't even have to have the word Target in their advertisement anymore because everyone knows what it is. So, you know, if my sister were to do a really good job of building her brand, it would get to the point where people would just recognize this, you know, like the golden arches of McDonald's. When people recognize that, a Nike swoosh or whatever it is, they don't even need the name anymore because it becomes recognizable. Now, obviously, when you're building a brand, you still need people to know what the name of your business is. So I'm still going to give this one to her and see what she thinks. She may totally toss the idea, or it might be her favorite, so we'll see. So we've got this one. I'm going to crop it in like I did the others. The other one. So it's going to look okay. We got that one. Let's save this one. Again, I'm going to save it as a Photoshop document and a JPEG. Later, when I make the final one, transparent, I will have to save it as a PNG file. Okay, so we've got that one. Now I'm going to still use this F that I created. But instead I'm going to make the canvas a little bit larger here, and let's see, I need to make the width, I need to expand the left side. Let's try 12 inches and see if that's enough. That should be. Not trying to crop the image here. Let me get off of that. I want this to say family fresh food. And probably what will be best is if these words are really, really big and the F is small. So I'm actually going to go ahead and make this even bigger here. So I'm going to end up with a really long, wide logo. Okay, so let's start with family as the first word. And it kind of depends on the font that I use here. Let's try a different font. I don't really like that one for what we're doing now. You know, I really liked the one that we used in the first one, and I can't remember what it was called, but it's not a sans serif. Let me see. It was aliens and cows. That was it. So let's try this. Family. And I'm going to do a new layer. Fresh. And I'm going to adjust these. I'm just getting the words on here first. Sometimes it's hard to tell with these all cap fonts here. So food is the shortest word, which means it needs to have the biggest font, because again, I want the edges to be the same. So food will be the largest font, and then fresh will be a little larger, and then family, I'll probably keep it about the size it is now. So let's up this to 250. Not big enough. Let's try 280. That's pretty close. Let's try 295. Might just be right at 300. Okay. So the outer edge of the F's are lined up here, and the Y and the D are lined up, and I have the bottom of food lined up with the bottom of the F, and the bottom of, or the top of family is lined up with the top of the F graphic here. So now I just need to fit fresh into all of this. So let's try next font for this. We'll do 250. It's a little too big, so 220. That's close, but not good enough. 300. Oh, just kidding, I meant 230. Okay, now I have to arrow them over a little bit and get them lined up. That's pretty close, and now I can tell that this food needs to get just a tad bit bigger. Like slightly. Let's try 310. Too big. Sometimes I feel like 5 points is a ton, and other times it's not near enough, so okay. And again, I could pull up the grid to make sure this is exactly lined up. I'm just trying to get the outer part of the F, so I am going to bring up that grid because this is driving me crazy. And I'm going to zoom in. And obviously I don't need all this, so let me go ahead and crop some of this off of here. Zoom in. Okay, so if we're looking at this, let's get, it looks like the bottoms are lined up well, and then if we are on, so we have almost three boxes in between here, and that looks good. And now the F in this F aren't lined up, so I need food to be slightly smaller. The smallest, like, going 2 points down there. Is that enough? Let's go one more point. I know this is like minuscule things, but it makes a really big difference. Okay, so now those are lined up well. So that's good. This one's lined up. So I just need to get fresh to be a little better here. So it's got to go just a little bit bigger. Let's try those 5 points and see. And that might be all it takes. Let's make sure the F is lined up. So all three of those are lined up, and I'm going to see if I go up one more point, if that's going to be just one too many. Nope, I think that did it. Okay. That looks good. So the last thing I want to make sure is that I have the same amount of space between the three words. So it looks like I've got one full, almost two here, and a little bit. So this one needs to come down just slightly. I've got one, and then about a half and a half. And if I'm looking at the spacing between these, I've got a little more than that. Okay, that should do it. Let's zoom out. Family fresh food. Okay, let me crop this. Actually, first let me turn off the grid. So again, we go to View, Show, Grid, turn that off, and let me crop it. And I think I'm going to do one last one. It's going to be a little bit different on the font. But let me save this one. File, save as, logo 3 as a Photoshop document. And then I'm going to go to save as JPEG. Okay. And so you can see our 3 different ones there. And I'm going to do one last one. I'm going to go to File, Place, again, I'm doing the embedded, Place Embedded. And I have this, no, that's not it. Let me find the image that I had. It must be, let me try this one, might have been it. No. Maybe it was this other one. That is it. So with this one, I liked how it had the line already there. I'm going to keep this one pretty simple, and I'm just going to use, I have kind of a more scripty, like, you know, more handwritten type font, and I'm just going to write Family Fresh Food underneath here. So let me resize this a little more. Make it a little bit bigger. Okay, and then with my text box, and this is too big. So for now, we'll just keep with the size. I'll probably have to go smaller, but Family Fresh Food. I even don't mind that font with that either. Let's try this one that I was looking at. Sexy Beachy. I'm going to go a little bit bigger on the font here. And I'm also going to space, let me try spacing out the letters just a little. You can see it might not work. Sometimes with the script ones where it looks like the letters are supposed to be, you know, linked together, then it doesn't work to space out the font, like kind of like with these O's, but let me try a little bit. Yeah, I don't mind that though. And let me see if I go back to normal. Family Fresh Food. It needs to be spaced for sure. A matter of figuring out how much. Fresh food. I'm just kind of playing around with it a little bit. That's too close together. I like that there's even the words are too close, so I'm just adjusting the font size and the spacing. That might be the best there. So like that, and then make sure it's lined up here. Leave a little more of a space. Okay, so I have this one. I'm going to try one more font with this same little graphic. So again, we're going to crop it. So I'm basically going to end up giving her 5 options. Okay, that looks good. So file, save as. Again, we do the PNG. We got logo 4. And then save as JPEG. Okay. So the only other thing I want to do is try one more font and then call it a day. So I'm going to try this last font that I like, and a little bit bigger so it fits. 125, and adjust it. Let me try doing this bold. It's a little thinner than the graphic, so oh no, we don't want that, do we? Yeah, I think it'll be okay. Let me just move it over a little bit so it's kind of in line there. Yeah. So let's save this one as the last option, and then that is it. So I will send these to her. She will pick out the one she wants, or she may not like any of them, and then I'll start over. But assuming she likes one of them, then from there, I will make the logo transparent and deliver her the different types of files. And again, if you want to check out how to make your logo transparent, make sure you check out the tutorial that I have linked in the post. And from here, we will move on to how to deliver the different file types to your clients. Thanks for watching this video. Make sure you stay connected with Urban Rhino on social media. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, comment below, and of course, subscribe to our channel.